morning viewers, welcome to our digital session. In your class you might have worked with the reading text The Selfish Giant. We know that the giant owned a lovely beautiful garden which was full of beautiful flowers and fruit and was covered with green grass. In his absence, the children used to play in the garden. But one day, the giant came all of a sudden and saw the children playing in his garden. And the giant was so angry that he drove all the children away. And he said, "My own garden is my own garden." He even put a notice, "Trespassers will be prosecuted." Since then, the children were unable to enter the garden. The giant was alone in his garden. The snow, the frost, the hail, and the north wind joined the giant. It was all spring outside, but it's still winter in the giant's garden. The giant was fed up with this. One morning, he heard the song of linnet. Where is the sound coming from? He thought. Immediately, spring entered the garden. And all the children also entered the garden. There is total change in the giant. He is no more selfish. Now he started enjoying the company of the children. Every day he played with the children and the children played with him. He was happy with the children and the children were happy with him. Dear children, you must have enjoyed the text, The Selfish Giant. In today's session, we are going to work with the elements of verb, particularly the use of gerunds. The objectives of the session are to enable the learners to understand the nature and function of the verb in a sentence, to enable them to identify the string of words in a phrase, to enable them to know about the verb phrase, to enable them to identify the participle and the gerund, and to enable them to recite the poem The Garden Within. Observe these sentences. These are the sentences from our text, The Selfish Giant. I owned a large lovely garden and the birds sat on the trees. Can we split these sentences? Take a little time and try to split the elements of the sentences in a meaningful manner. Here they are. I owned a large lovely garden. This sentence can be split in this way. I and owned a large lovely garden. Have a look at the second sentence. The birds sat on the trees. It can be split as the birds and sat on the trees. Dear children, is there any reason for this division? We can say, I owned a large lovely garden. I stands as a single entity, and owned a large lovely garden stands as a unit. In case of second sentence, the birds sat on the trees. The birds stands as a unit, as well as sat on the trees stands as another unit. What are they called? Most of the sentences can be split in this way. We can label the parts as the noun phrase and the verb phrase. So what is a phrase? A phrase is a group of words which are used together and have a meaning. The common pattern of the sentence is, a sentence can be divided into two units at the primary level, a noun phrase and the verb phrase. And every phrase will have a head word which determines the category. I mean to say, a noun is the head word of a noun phrase, a verb is the head word of a verb phrase, and a preposition is the head word of a prepositional phrase. It is again possible to split the units further. Have a look at the sentence. The birds sat on the trees. At the first level, we can split the sentence as the birds as a noun phrase and sat on the trees as a verb phrase. If you see the noun phrase, the birds, birds is the head word. That's why the birds stands as the noun phrase. And if you come to the second one, sat on the trees, sat is the head word. Since it is the verb, sat on the trees is a verb phrase. If you move further, on the trees, whereas on the trees is the prepositional phrase, in which on is the head word, and the trees can further be split as a noun phrase. So let's have a look at the elements of the verb phrase. What can we have in a verb phrase? We all know that the verb is marked for tense. Tense refers to time. And the other possible elements are auxiliary or helping verbs, which are part of the verb phrase. And these auxiliary verbs are generally marked for tense, modal, and aspect. Let's observe the sentences and identify the verbal element. Sunita writes letters every Sunday. Sunita is writing a letter now. Sunita has written a letter just now. Try to identify the verbal elements in these sentences. We all know that in the first sentence, writes is the verbal element. In the second sentence, is writing is the verbal element. And in the third sentence, has written is the verbal element. And how are they different? What do these elements tell us? If you take the first sentence, Srita writes letters every Sunday, the verb writes refers to present time. In the second sentence, is writing, which is the verb phrase, and it refers to present time, and we know that the action is incomplete, so we call it progressive, which is the aspect of the verb phrase. In the third sentence, has written is the verb phrase. It refers to present time and it refers to the completed action. We can say it is perfective aspect. Look at these sentences. I cannot understand why the spring is late in coming. The child did not see the giant coming. In these sentences, the word coming does not refer to the aspect of the verb. We don't know whether the action is incomplete or completed. But how did we use the verb coming? In these sentences, the word coming does not refer to the aspect of the verb. Rather, it is used as the noun. It is called gerund. So what's a gerund? Now look at these sentences. He is swimming in the pool and swimming is good for health. Have a look at the first sentence. He is swimming in the pool. In the first sentence, the verb phrase is swimming is marked for tense and aspect. It is in present tense and progressive. But in the second sentence, the word swimming is not marked for tense or aspect. Rather, it's used as the subject of the sentence, and it is called gerund. Now we can say that a gerund is derived from a verb but functions as the noun. Here are a few sentences. Identify the gerunds and their function in them. The north wind ceased roaring. The child did not see the giant coming. I heard the children whispering outside the wall on their way to school. Why is the spring so late in coming? Walking makes us healthy and wealthy. Okay. In the first sentence, the north wind ceased roaring, in which roaring is the gerund. It functions as the object of the verb. In the second sentence, the child did not see the giant coming, in which coming is the gerund and it qualifies the noun the giant. In the third sentence, I heard the children whispering outside the wall on their way to school, in which whispering is the gerund and it is qualifying the noun children. In the fourth sentence, I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming, in which coming is the gerund and it is functioning as the object of the preposition in. Walking makes us healthy and wealthy, in which walking is the gerund and it is functioning as the subject of the sentence. Dear children, in this session we have worked with the elements of the verb, particularly gerunds, and we have come to know that gerunds are derived from verbs, but they are used as the noun. They may be the subject of a sentence or object of the verb, or sometimes they work as qualifiers. And here we have a wonderful poem. You might have worked with the poem in your class. Have a look at the poem, The Garden Within. Shall we recite the poem together? There is a garden in my heart where beauty grows in fits and starts. There is a garden in my heart where beauty grows in fits and starts, where smiles are petals from the flowers bestowed by others from their bowers, where smiles are petals from the flowers bestowed by others from their bowers. Nutritious hope reaps seeds to feed my spirit for its every need. Nutritious hope reaps seeds to feed my spirit for its every need. With gratitude I'll reach my goal, to touch the island of my soul. With gratitude I'll reach my goal, to touch the island of my soul. There is a garden in my heart where beauty grows in fits and starts. There is a garden in my heart where beauty grows in fits and starts. Dear children, I hope you have enjoyed the poem. Now here are a few words used in the poem. Petal is part of a flower. Bestow, give. Nutritious means good, and gratitude, thankfulness, and goal, target which is to be achieved. Now, dear children, here are a few questions related to the poem The Garden Within. Work in groups and try to get the answers for these questions. What is the central idea of the poem? What features of the garden in the poet's heart are mentioned in the first stanza? What is the mood of the poet? Explain the word gratitude in the poem. Dear children, in this session we have worked with gerunds and the other elements of a verb phrase, and we have come to know how to use gerunds in sentences, and we have worked with the poem The Garden Within. That's all for us today. Have a nice day.